right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Lead Aspire session today. I have with me one of our Mike Lead graduates, Stephanie Barnes, who's going to talk to you about a day in a life in her world, which, that's different. But one of the things, wanted to thank AWS, I'm sorry, for sponsoring the Mike Lee sessions, and be ready to be thrilled and amazed by what is going on in cybersecurity and Stephanie's world. So you know me, I'm gonna go off. You guys know me, so I'm going off camera and I'm gonna let you take it over, Steph.
All right. All right. Hopefully you guys can see my slideshow. Get it going. All right. So as Mary mentioned, I am Stephanie Barnes. I'm going to talk to you guys today about my journey in cybersecurity, basically, and the past year, what I've been doing in a startup and how that's been kind of different from where I started in cybersecurity 5 to 6 years ago. So this is really just to keep me honest, because I'll get off on a tangent and just start talking. So I really want to kind of stick to what my agenda is, telling you guys who I am, what I thought a startup would be like, what intelligence is, and then kind of what we do with the startup that I work at as an intelligence analyst, and what that normal day looks like, and then kind of like a retrospect for me of what I think startups are now that I've been in one. So who am I? Stephanie Barnes. I'm an intelligence analyst. I have been in information technology and information security for about 5 to 6 years. Those dates are wrong. I haven't updated this. I've worked as an intelligence analyst for the last year now. That just happened. I just had my anniversary at the company I'm at, like this past Tuesday. Before that, I worked in a couple of SOCs as a contractor for the government. I transitioned into cybersecurity and went almost immediately after like transitioning into working for a SOC. So that was the kind of life that I knew. That was the environment I was used to, kind of popping up alerts every day. I got really kind of burnt out on that and took a step back and thought about what I want to do and where I saw my future in the cybersecurity sphere, and started learning about intelligence while I was getting my master's degree. I took like a couple of classes on like global cybersecurity, got really passionate about the way that we do information sharing, and how if individuals, companies, enterprises, countries really shared information, that we could like revolutionize, in my mind, cybersecurity. It could make everybody more secure if we were willing to like share information with each other. So I got really passionate about that, and I was like, oh, intelligent analyst, that just is something up my field. I like research. I like writing reports. I know like people never say that, but I like research. I like writing reports. I like digging into something. I can be on the internet looking at something for hours on end, and it does not bore me. So I decided I didn't want to work in a SOC, like a classical SOC like that. I didn't want to be dealing with the tier 1 alerts and doing triage. And so I looked into intelligence analysts and trying to get a position there. So what happened was I ended up getting a position at a startup, and the only thing I could think of with startups was that I knew it was something small. I knew that like at that time, which was this time last year, there were a lot of layoffs happening. There was a lot of shakeup in the market, things that startups that they would call like unicorns that had this really innovative starting point, and it was going to revolutionize this, that, and the other. Like it was really trying to like peak, it was starting to peak off and people were losing their jobs. So it was kind of scary to even think about going into a startup, especially from the background I was in, where it was a lot more stable, with having like a government backing, where government's always going to need bodies. The contract work it might be quick turnaround sometimes, or you might have that period where the contract is coming up for renewal where you might be nervous about it, but the work is always there. They always need bodies. So it was kind of more concrete. And so I hadn't really even thought about working at a startup because it was just something new to me. And it was kind of like a little scary. But even with the process of interviewing, it was just like very refreshing. Like it was instead of what can you bring to our company, it was like what they have to offer me. Where can I see myself being in 5 years? What did I want from a company that I was not getting from the company I was working with at the time? And I thought that like the entire process was very refreshing for me. And it actually piqued my interest. It made me want to work for the company, not just for, oh, this is a new paycheck or anything like that. It was just like, it kind of got me excited about the possibility of working there. So then what is intelligence? Like, it is information, but it's not just information. It has to be actionable, it has to be timely, and it has to be reliable. Like, if you have information that's dated from 5 years ago, there's very little that you can do in your system about it today. You need the things that are cutting edge, that are just coming out, and you need to be the first person on it, but not to the point where you are increasing fear, uncertainty, doubt. This is like a big thing in my everyday, is not to speak about things in a way that makes people feel panicky. It's to ingest information and then give it to our customers, but do so that they can focus on the things that are most important and that they can actually do something about. We look at it in my position as mostly kind of open source intelligence. We grab information from the internet, from different websites that are like talking about cybersecurity aspects every day, talking about vulnerabilities that are out there, speaking to government regulations that have to do with cybersecurity, not just here in the US, but also in Europe and in Canada, in the Five Eyes states, Five Eye countries that are allied of the US, and then we kind of try to see commonalities that a layperson might not see, and try to look at trends, especially with like malware and threat actors, that somebody that just reads one newspaper or always goes to the same source might not see. So in my day-to-day, there's like a lot of just collating, like gathering sources to see what all is out there, what all we need to be on top of, and things like that. With our intelligence cycle, it usually has these 5 to 6 points. Sometimes people will separate the planning and the direction phase. But with us, our planning, because the company I work for is a cyber risk company, and also does cyber insurance, like a lot of our information might come from the claims that we have come in. We look for gaps in reporting that we've already done, versus like the claims that come in from our insured. So say that some hypothetical insured was attacked by some ransomware operator. Well, we might go back and look at the reports that we've put out and see if we've touched on that operator. Now, if we haven't, that's a gap. So then we'll make a plan to look into that operator, collect information about it, put it all together, analyze what's going out there, what we can see regarding that operator, and then say, well, should we make a report on it? Should we have a dashboard that we can look at about it and follow up to see if it's an industry type of thing, if it's not just that specific customer, or if it's not just that specific industry, or if it's something bigger than just this little claim that we're looking at. And then whatever it is that we produce, we'll put it out there for not just that insured, but all of our customers, and then try to get feedback from them to see, was this something that you needed? Was this something that is working for you? Is this information helpful? What can we do to make it better? And then the cycle kind of begins all over again. So back to that, what is specifically cyber threat intelligence? There are 4 different types. Basically, we kind of focus in on the strategic, which is the highest level one, the kind of information that you would want to give to your risk managers, your C-level suite, your CISO, the CEO, things like that. We create a lot of reports that speak in a higher overview so that they can do operational planning at a high level. But then we also touch on a lot of technical and tactical reporting that is more about indicator sharing. Like, we collect indicators from a lot of our partners, and of course we get them from government agencies like CISA, who put out information all the time, but they are companies that are smaller or medium-sized companies, and then a lot of even bigger companies that might not be collecting that kind of information are seeking the kind of information that we just do every day. So we pass it along in order for them to shore up their defenses. You have like this list of indicators, but you don't know maybe that, I don't know, that these info stealers or something like that are like running rampant. So you're not looking at that, you're not paying attention to that, because you have all this other stuff, because your IT department is working as your security department as well. We make it like a one-stop place where you can go and be like, oh, we have cyber insurance with this company. And they're also sending us indicators, and they're also giving us intelligence information at a high level view for our CISO, and they are invested in us shoring up defenses. That's the kind of thing that I do on a day-to-day basis. And the whole scheme of things, we are trying to get left of boom. I don't know who out there has heard of this. It's a military term that the cybersecurity community has kind of co-opted, which just means that the boom in this case would be any kind of cyber event or cyber incident. And the further away you can get to that, to the left, which means before it happens, the better off you are. So if you're already looking on the horizon to things that could be something, quote unquote, explosive, something very bad in your enterprise, the more prepared you can be for it when it comes. So things like cyber threat intelligence and like threat hunting, detection engineering, those kind of things are trying to get you further to the left so that you can be more prepared instead of being reactive, being right of boom and then scurrying around for trying to shore up your defenses as an incident is happening, or doing it when you have your lesson learned portion of your incident response. You are trying to get more and more proactive about being defensive and looking at the threats that are out there, looking at your threat landscape and preparing yourself for the eventuality that there is going to be a security incident, that it's not if it happens, it's when it's happening, it's that it's happening, it's an inevitability, instead of saying it's never going to happen to us. It can't happen to us. We're never going to get popped like this. We're never going to have ransomware. We're never going to have like any of this stuff happen to us, because nobody wants to, or anything like that. I think we're dissolving that whole belief that we are not going to be a victim. So as I said before, my company does cyber risk and cyber insurance. Like all these risk calculations and models and things like that, where this is what risk is. This is the thing that we're trying to kind of get away from. My favorite one is the first one, because it puts controls as part of this whole equation. My belief, and I think I can speak pretty much for my company and saying, is that putting controls in place is the best kind of way to lower your risk. And that doesn't just include having cyber insurance. You shouldn't just have a cyber insurance and then sit back and say, oh, well, we're covering now because we shoveled all this money to like this outside entity, and if something happens, they'll just pay for our claim, and then we can play the ransomware operators, or we can, recover if the SEC is going to fine us or something like that. You have to actually put forth an effort to becoming cyber resilient and putting defense in depth in place, so that when incidents happen, events happen, they're not catastrophic. It doesn't mean that your entire company is going to fold and you're like going to have to lay off half your employees or anything like that. So besides doing threat intelligence and doing research, we also do a lot of vulnerability kind of assessments and notifications. On a daily basis, though, there's anywhere from 76 to 100, different vulnerability alerts come out. So that kind of number of like vulnerabilities, it makes it almost impossible for any one person, any small group of people to be alerting on them all the time. So in our day-to-day, we think about what vulnerabilities are remotely executed. Vulnerabilities can be remotely executed. Then are they being exploited right now? If they're not being exploited right now, is there a proof of concept out there? Because if there's a proof of concept out there, that means that there's some code out there that somebody with a little bit of experience coding can just adjust to use to their means, and then it can be actively exploited. And then also, is there some kind of mitigation? That goes back to what I was saying earlier about not increasing FUD. It's all well and good to say, oh, well, there's this vulnerability out there that's being exploited, and it allows a remote attacker to have, execution abilities on your network. But if there's nothing you can do about it, does it help? No. Like, it doesn't help to have the information that this thing can hurt you, but there's nothing you can do about it. So we look to make sure that it has a mitigation, because we want to be able to tell you, hey, this bad thing is out there and it could affect your appliances, but this is what you can do to mitigate that thing. This is what you can do to make that better. With all the vulnerabilities that are out there, a lot of them are very localized as well. You might have to have authentication, or you might have to be already connected and on-prem to actually do anything with it. So we're not going to report on those, because although there can be insider threat, like we would target that kind of thing in like a different kind of report, not in our vulnerability assessment, not in our notifications about vulnerabilities. But we do think it's important, as a company that is there to like kind of help you mitigate your risk, to report to them or to our customers about vulnerabilities that we might see. And then we also try to use open source reporting, things like Shodan, that will show you open devices or devices on networks out there that you can see from the internet. And if we can see it, then attackers can see it. And then it shows like the vulnerabilities a lot of times that these devices might have. So we'll use it the way that a lot of kind of red teamers might use it, in that we'll do our searches for anything and our customers that are on the internet that have vulnerabilities or appear to have vulnerabilities. And we kind of let them know, hey, we're seeing this out there. And like I said, if we can see it, somebody that is an attacker can see it as well. So what does my normal day look like? After I was saying all of that, what does the rundown of more normal day look like? I do research vulnerabilities. One of the first things I do when I log in to work is to look at, I have a bunch of newsletters that come in from different like threat feeds. I go look at the news. I see if there's anything pertinent regarding threat actors, anything that's saying, oh, there's some campaigns going on out there. I might look into that more. I see if there's any kind of vulnerability that's getting a lot of I want to say play. It's getting a lot of information. A lot of people are talking about it, especially on like InfoSec's Twitter or on Mastodon or anywhere on social media. There's also websites that collect CVE mentions. I'll go look at those and just see like what are people talking about today? What is all the buzz about? What's going on in the world? Is there any new malware that like people are talking about? Are there any new threat actors? Is there anything novel out there? Just doing general research. I do a lot of reading, but for the most part, the first hour or so every day is just kind of skimming over what's going on in the news, any news. I did not mean to go back like that. That also includes like doing any kind of geopolitical kind of research too. Just kind of seeing, is there anything that might be happening in China and Russia and Iran, anywhere on the globe that might have some kind of bearance on any of our customers or even ourselves. Also write reports. I write reports that have to do with specific threat actors. There are reports that we do that have to do with specific industries that might break it down and say, hey, after doing all this research, we're seeing that the top threats to this industry or this sector seems to be these 5 things. And then we'll talk more about those 5 things, like particularly, and then also might include, oh, these are some recent attacks that we've seen, or these are like the novel approaches that we're seeing to that attackers are using in this specific industry. For example, this morning or the last couple of days, I think I saw a campaign where they were leveraging ambassadors' emails or something like that to target ambassadors overseas. And I was like, oh, I mean, to me, it's really interesting. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I can see why you would want to target an ambassador. I can see like the information you might get from them if you can get control of their like email credentials and the kind of havoc you can raise. And for me, that's interesting. It's cool. It makes me want to read more. It makes me want to look up the threat actor that's doing it, maybe the tools that they're using, see if this is like a singular kind of incident, like if this campaign has only, like this is the first time it's ever been seen, or if there was something like it previous done by the same threat actors or even a different group. Maybe it's something that on the dark web or the deep web people are actually talking about, and they're like, hey, we're trading these ideas on how we can get these ambassadors to give us their credentials or something like that. That's really interesting. So if you find stuff like that interesting, like this might be, the spot for you. But I also write on like alerts that are that have to do with our customers, like those vulnerability notifications. A lot of those end up being alerts because of the kind of time press on patching. So if we look at it and it's something like, oh no, they need to know now, they kind of need to do XYZ in like a timely manner, it will become an alert. If it's going to be like something short and drawn out, I mean, not short and drawn out, but short, and it just hits on a point, like it just talks about a threat actor briefly, or if it talks about like an industry, like an industry FBI alert, like something very brief, we'll call it like a briefing. But really all it is, it's some sort of writing that has to do with either intelligence, vulnerability, threat actors, that kind of thing. I also do a lot of connecting with our internal teams as well as external teams because of the type of company that we are. On a day-to-day basis, I might be talking to somebody that's a claims lawyer or an underwriter. I could be talking to a security person at a company that we insure, or I could be doing something for like our marketing team for outreach, either to get our brand out there or just to kind of connect back with the security the security community as like a whole. I also, like I said before, read about geopolitical situations, new regulations, emerging technology, anything that we could see that an enterprise would or might like integrate into their operations. We try to stay like abreast of it. So when generative AIs started to become like the real big buzzword, like we did like everybody else did, or hopefully everybody else did, we started reading about it. So now when people talk about Chat GPT, we know a little bit about Chat GPT. So when we have people that aren't as tech savvy or aren't really in cybersecurity in our company, or even any of our customers ask about, hey, what do you guys think about Chat GPT? Now we all have opinions because we've been reading up on it, and we've been reading up on the kind of way that threat actors are using that whole model to create their own things. Like they have Worm GPT now, and they have Fraud GPT, which just is just a large models that they based off this whole Chat GPT thing to kind of make it into like crimeware. And so now they can spin it up and try to sell it to criminals that, hey, this doesn't have the safeguards that Chat GPT has, and it can help you write your business email compromise letter. That's what criminals do, and we have to know that they're doing it so that we can inform other people of it. In a day-to-day basis, I might actually be talking to somebody on the C-level. Like when I was working in the South, I never talked to anybody on the C-level. I didn't know how to parse through what was most important for them to know or anything like that. Working here, the CEO knows who I am. It's a very small company. I had to get over feeling like nervous about that kind of thing, thinking like I'm at this level and they're at this level or anything like that, because now they have questions and I'm supposed to have some of the answers. So doing it on a normal basis kind of took all that kind of fear about it away. And if it's not one of these things, then I'm doing something, something similar, something completely different. No day that I've had has been exactly like the day that I had before. One day I might have 5 meetings and I might only know what 3 of them are completely about. And then the other 2, I'm in them and I'm like, huh, so that's happening. And how can I help to, make that whatever it is come to fruition? What is my part in that? It's exciting for me on the one hand, because it's just like all these things are happening because we are a small company. Startups can start very, very, very small, 80, 50, very small amount of people. I think we're less than 200 now, but slowly getting there. And there are all these initiatives that people have that they want to institute so we can grow as a company. And that's different for me because, like I said, I used to work in a SOC. I used to work for a contracting company, and when you work like that, you kind of can feel like a number. Because there's thousands of people, like there are thousands of people making this whole machine work. When there's only 100 or so people making the machine work, it's easy to say, I know XYZ, I know that person, I've seen that person, I've talked to that person. And it's easier to say things like, I know what this group is working on. One, because it's all transparent and they're telling me about it. But 2, because you're doing the same thing. Like they know what I'm doing and what I'm working on. Because we're so small, how could you not? Like there's really no excuse to not know what's kind of going on. So what I think about my whole year in review, like I went from thinking that it was this thing that I was going out on a limb for, that like it might fail because like startups were kind of failing at that point. There were a lot of layoffs. Especially like in the tech sector, of like the startup tech sector, especially in like Q4 last year, like December and November, there were like thousands of layoffs. And I remember sitting there like, God, I hope I didn't make a mistake. I hope everything's going to be okay. But now I feel like very confident in the things that are happening for my company. And I think it's partially because being smaller means that I know that I have a hand in a lot of things. My team is only 5 people if you count our CISO. So 5 people, and I know on a day-to-day basis the things that I'm doing are actually building towards something, and I know that I have like a bigger say in what that something is going to be. So for me, like this whole year has been like a very big learning experience. And when I kind of look back on it, I just think about how I took kind of a chance, doing something that I hadn't done before, changing kind of gears, going from the big entity company and working for the government, because even before I was in cybersecurity and InfoSec, I was working either for the government or adjacent to the government. It was kind of like all I knew. So kind of going to the private sector, going to a smaller company, it allowed me to break away from like the burnout I was feeling working in the SOC. It allowed me to get over kind of the alert fatigue that I was definitely beginning to feel. And I think sometimes you have to take a step back and maybe change gears to find something that allows you more of a work-life balance, and allows you to take kind of that breather and then try different things. Yeah, try different things and kind of see, is this the thing that I like to do? Like, I knew that I like to research, but did I want to do it 24/7, or however you want to do the math of working time? Maybe I wouldn't have. But after this year, I realized, nope, I really do. I really can't just be looking up stuff for 8 hours a day, and it's okay with me. I really can be writing reports for however long I sit there and write a report, and it does not feel like boring, tedious work. It really is still interesting stuff to me. And I am thankful actually for having the opportunity to like take that step back, readjust to what I was doing, and go in a different direction. So I don't know if there are any questions out there, but if there are, I'm open to it.
Well, I have questions. So, and some of the things that were brought out by, what you're going through and what you've done within your career, how you transitioned out of the security operations center into a different area is, aligns with what I try to teach or what I try to say to individuals that are trying to be in the cybersecurity space, meaning there are multiple places that you can find your path in this space because, the way you described it in this conversation was amazing. And the way you described it to be, it's like you're good. We're just doing research now. It's like, okay. And my intel people were in my SOC. So I use, when I had my security operations center, I had a cyber intel team, and that's what they did. And so it becomes okay, Miss Mary, if you know anything about me, it's reading, it's research, it's writing. You have those three things are still important in regards to your career. And there are places within the cybersecurity profession that are literally you're just informing people of what's the bad things that are going on, right? And you're not necessarily technically hand-on in remediation of those, but your value is that you're pointing out to teams where those things lie and where you can actually, that's where your value is located. So even if you are just, a research geek, like Stephanie it has it found that she is, it becomes there is still a place for you to be. So I would ask you, I have a list over here. I would ask you when it comes to cyber risk, right? Because cybersecurity, especially in the Insuretech, in the insurance type of field, becomes an issue that a lot of tech people don't get because we have been conditioned to believe that cybersecurity is this super highly technical field, not necessarily relating it to business risk. So as an insurance or insuretech startup or professional, what are those things about cyber risk that you look to as you're judging an organization on whether or not their controls are actually relevant?
Sure. So in my position, we might not do as much of that. It's more so our underwriters who will look at their form, and then they might come to us with questions about maybe like, have you ever heard of this company? This is the company that this company that's looking to be insured is using for let's say they're using it for their privileged access management. Have you ever heard of this company? What is their reputation like? And then we might look into it. If it's someplace that we've never heard of, we'll look into it like more deeply. If it's someplace that we know and we're like, oh no, they're a market leader, they haven't had any real like problems with their solution, or maybe they had one or two a couple of years ago, but from all reporting, they've changed the way that they do all this operation. And now, it's been pretty good for the last couple of years. But if it's someplace that we've never heard of, in like some way off place, and they only have like 5 clients, we can tell them, hey, this place looks like they're new to the market. They have 5 clients, and none of those 5 clients that we can see are like really reputable. Maybe not, maybe a little bit more risky. So we might use it in like the kind of like a traffic light system. So like, this is red. this is red. Like it's at least a dark orange. And but then it'll take that's just like a PAM solution. But it'll say things like, oh well, do they have MFA? Are they using that? If it's not, oh, that's a red.
Mm-hmm.
If it is, then green. They have, or maybe it'll be yellow until we know like what's the kind of solution they have. Is it going to people's phones? Because now it stays yellow. Is it like a Google authent? Then we can do like a green if it's an app. But if it's going to their phone, that's it. In my opinion, it's a yellow. Yeah, they got MFA, but it's not the best kind.
Right. No, and all of that MFA, for those of you who don't know, is multi-factor authentication. And as we go and as we talk about this journey for you guys going into the cybersecurity space, it's just a matter of understanding what you're stepping into. And unfortunately, we don't do a good job in the industry explaining the non-technical aspects of things, because honestly, you're a risk professional, and that's my opinion. You are trying to determine, as Stephanie said, left of the boom, as we used to say in my day. And I'll say that it's shift left. It's the same concept. It's getting further and further away from being reactionary. And the more you can have teams that are focused in on understanding what's going on out there, and anticipate what these threat actors or bad guys will be doing, the better off you are as a professional, and the better off you are as a cybersecurity professional, because ultimately we are charged with protection of the organizations, right? So, that risk management aspect and the third-party risk management aspect, those all play into whether or not you do business with somebody, whether or not you actually buy the solution, whether it's commercially off the shelf or some other type of solution in your organization, whether you're implementing a particular tool. You have to know all of these things that are not really technical. They're really research. You have to dig into it, and you have to be able to find an answer before you go out and expect the answer to be there. So we are filled in this industry with individuals that are to the left of the breach. We don't do a good job in the industry. We always focus on to the right of the breach. It's the reactionary components. It's, oh, red team, blue team, purple team, blah, blah, blah. But there are a lot of people that can prevent a breach from happening by listening to the vulnerability management team, the third-party risk management team, all of these other teams that, shall I say, the audit team. All of these other teams are designed to show you where holes exist within an organization so you can actually fill those holes. But a lot of times these security teams or cybersecurity teams, or whether they're in the SOC or out of the SOC or in vulnerability management or in audit or whatever, it's being able to articulate to the organization as a whole that there's a reason for you to spin the cycles to actually reduce this risk. So I think it's awesome. I think it's amazing that you were able to shift out of the security operations center, but I would hazard a guess that you still use those skills today in your current role. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll ever not. And I still consider myself, like, at the end of the day, like, if we were gonna say, are you red team or blue team? I still consider myself like a blue teamy kind of person. I still think defender minded. But also the people that I work with, a lot of them are like red team minded. And so it kind of is cohesive because I'm always telling people defense, defense, defense. This, if you guys would just do this, you could better defend yourself. And they're like, yeah, because then, like, my coworker might chime in, yeah, because we would attack it just like this. I attacked it just like this in my former job. And it's great because it's not like I'm not super duper technical, and I also will tell people I don't consider myself like a hacker. Like, I don't have that. I don't want to tear pigs apart. I don't want to be in the web shells. I don't want to pop machines. I don't want that life. So I would
But can
never
you
go up there
do it
and
if
say
you
that.
do you have the skills to do it if you wanted to? That's the question. You don't, it's whether or not you actually act upon the skill. Whether you
Yeah.
have it or not is different. Yeah, come on, Stephanie.
I want to tinker with things a little bit, and sometimes I want to press all the buttons, then I just only want to do it in my environment. Like, I don't want to press other people's buttons. Like, I don't want to be responsible for bringing down other people's networks or anything like that. But I
But you
will
can.
advise you and
You
say,
could. You
hey.
you could. No, but you still could. I do have a question. Do you feel as though you still have a good work-life balance being on a smaller team?
Yes, I actually think I have a better work-life balance. Oh, excuse me, because even having the smaller team, my team, my manager, my CISO, I know them on first name basis. When they see me, they ask me how I'm doing, and I mean, like, actually, how are you doing? How's your life going? Do you feel overworked? They're constantly asking me, is it too much? What is stopping you from doing whatever work? Is there anything going on that, like, can affect the work that you're doing? Not in a way that's like, oh, you need to be producing stuff, but in a way that it's like, hey, are you taking breaks? Like, you did like 5 reports this week or however many, you're killing it, but are you killing you? Like, they're constantly checking out of me. When I say that I need to take a day off, nobody's like, but why? There's no question about it. There's nothing like you need to contact somebody to cover for you because operations. Until I've heard that sentence before.
Right, right.
But I don't get any of that. It's never. And even actually, when I overshare now, because I find myself doing that because I've had to in the past, they're just like, we don't need that information from you, Stephanie. Like, you don't have to tell us that. Just take your day off and stay off of our Slack. Like, so yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. No, I do have another question. It says, have you had to do research on the dark web? And if so, what types of research and how has that experience been?
So yes, but not in the way that you think. So not in the way that you think. I mean, that I don't have like my own Tor client on my work laptop, and I'm not going into forums and pretending to be like somebody else. Nothing like that. We have a third party that we use that they monitor the dark web, and we get like all these forums and stuff like that, and we look through it, and we might search for one of our customers or ourselves to try to see if anybody's talking about that, or maybe like with the most recent kind of thing with Move It and Clop. I don't know if you guys know anything about that, but basically the software Move It had this huge vulnerability that was exploited by a ransomware group, Clop, a month ago. at the end of May. And they're still releasing victims to this day. Like they just released one, a dump of victims, I think yesterday or the day before, on their dark website. So we have the ability to look at that and then report back to our customers if we see their names. We'll just say, hey, we saw your name on CLOP. And, we can't say whether they have your data or not because they're criminals and criminals lie, but you guys might want to look into that, not that informally, but just like that. And but yeah, so we don't, I don't have a Tor client up. I'm not looking on the dark web like that. I'm not pretending to be like somebody else. I'm not a Leo, so I don't do that kind of stuff. But we do have ways to ingest dark web data and all that stuff.
Oh, well, you're better than me. I have people on staff that were intricately involved with the dark web, and I'm not mentioning any names. But all that to be said, it's getting that information is important. And I go back all the way, when I was running the Security Operations Center and my Intel team to Ashley Madison, and look it up if you don't know what it is. But Ashley Madison was a site for individuals that were cheating on their spouses, and there was a dump on the dark web, and we got a hold of that information. But that was interesting. That was an interesting experience for me, being, the leader of the Security Operations Center at that time, when there were information dumped about email addresses that went right back to the organization that I was working for. But all that to be said, all very intriguing and all very interesting. Are there any other questions out there? I'm monitoring both YouTube and internal. I didn't see any other questions, but all I want to do is say thank you so much, Stephanie. Mike Lead grad, look at that, holding it down. And I really, really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences. She has on here her contact information. Look, there you go. All contact information is out there. And if you want to reach out, connect, please do. Thank you guys for joining us in person. Thank you guys that are watching it out there on our YouTube channel, and those that are restreaming. Please subscribe to our channel. You'll get these updates. Well, we run programming twice a month at least. So look forward to next time. And thank you again, Stephanie, and I appreciate it. And you guys enjoy your weekend.
Hey, have a good time, you guys.
Let's see.